All right. I think Mr. Azlan have already joined us. Okay. So very happy to see him.
Hello. Hope everyone is doing okay this hot Friday afternoon.
Yeah. So we have a very hot topic as well for
Really, yeah, I noticed there's quite a number of people today. There's 23 people in this session. So much more than the last time.
Yeah. Okay, so Mr. Azlan is here with us and he's going to share about leadership, and his title will be 10 ways to avoid leadership pitfalls. All right, okay, something not to do. Okay,
Yes.
so I think I'll give the floor to Mr. Azlan. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Faisal. Do I really need to, do I need to introduce myself? Is everyone familiar with who I am and why I'm here? Anyone needs me to clarify anything?
Maybe if you want to give a quick introduction, Ken.
Okay. My name is Azlan. I am currently the chief designer for PROTON. I hope most of you know PROTON, the car manufacturer for Malaysia. And I've been in this position I've been doing this job for over 20 years now, 24, I think, to be exact. Basically, I lead a big group of about 60 people, and they come from all sorts of backgrounds, and we do design for all of our products, not just cars, anything under the sun that involves design, actually. But we're not engineers. I mean, we have a small group of engineers in the team, but essentially we're not an engineering team. Dr. Faisal, if I'm not mistaken, most if not all in this team is from engineering.
Okay, they are from various backgrounds. Okay, I think 30% of them are from engineering. Others are from different department or program.
Yeah, very good. I mean, that's how my team is actually organized. We're not all from the same mold. We're a mix of industrial designers, graphic designers. We even have fashion designers, and of course some engineers also, and management team. Why we need that is because we need different perspectives to many of the things that we do. Yeah? Once you get caught up in that tunnel vision, then you have a problem. Yeah? And in design, you cannot have that. And that's actually related to today's topic. 10 things that you can do to avoid issues. I think this is very to all of you, because at some point you will be entering the workforce. You will be part of a team, because no man is an island. I don't see how anyone can actually work on their own permanently. Yeah? At some point, you will be part of a team, and especially as engineers or business people, leading a team is going to be part of your essential skills. Yeah. One of the recognized qualities for the future, especially in the prospects of jobs, is the ability to think creatively, innovatively, and also be leaders, not bosses. A lot of the issues we have these days in organizations is that you have too many bosses, but very few leaders. So I hope by the end of this session, you will be able to tell the difference between a boss and a leader. Okay, and in that effect, you should strive to be a leader, not a boss. Yeah. Personally, I usually feel I resent the fact that when I have members of my junior staff or or my peers who call me boss, I don't like it. I think it's derogatory in some respects to be called a boss. Okay, right. Allow me to share the screen. Yeah. Whilst I'm doing that, any questions from all of you? There's 24 of you here. Any questions so far? Right. I hope all of you can see the screen. Okay. I'm assuming silence means means good. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Right,
You
allow
can
me
see.
to begin. Yeah, great. 10 ways to avoid common leadership pitfalls. Yeah. Okay. Number one. Yeah. Is to me one of the most important things. It is taking time to bond with people. And when you say people here, it's usually it starts with your people around you. Yeah. So if you are a leader, right, you must be interested in human level, because only through the humanistic level can you create bonds which are deep enough to connect the different peoples around. So here's a picture of me. Throughout this whole presentation, I'm giving you live examples from my own experience. I hope you can feel a more personal, relevant experience in that way. Yeah? So here's a picture of me coaching. Yeah. Part of the things that I do is actually I invest in wellness and well-being coaching. Yeah. And that's me in the middle. Yeah. I believe that when you're surrounded by people from all levels, right? And trust me, these people all around me come from different levels of the organization. We have about almost 9,000 people in the organization. So you can imagine, yeah? They can make it from people from engineering, from the shop floor, from the sales, business divisions, everything. I like to connect with them. I like to bond with them when I coach them, because that's the only way that you can put yourself in their position and understand what goes on. Everyone in this picture has unique backgrounds, has unique perspectives, and you cannot do that if you're not interested in the human level of engagement, right? So as a leader, you have to take time to bond with your staff, to bond with the team members. Yeah? If you're put in a group to do your assignment, ask yourself, are you really making effort to connect with the people in your team? Or are you merely in there to complete a task on your own? Okay. Trust me, when you start to engage the people in your team, you will have a very different experience. So bonding is key. So this is number one. The second one is about being available. Because if you are unavailable and inaccessible all the time, then you're going to have a problem. Yeah? Because one of the big aspects of being a leader is that your ability to delegate. You know what I mean by delegate, right? Okay. Because you can't do everything yourself. You rely on people to help you achieve things, just like my team here. Okay? Well, we got some guests, foreign guests here, but by and large, this is my design team in Proton. So, some people say that some leaders, they stay in their glass house up in the hill, right? That assumption, right? That is something very negative. Yeah? Personally, I have an open door policy. That means my team can see me at any time, talk about anything. That's how I manage them. Yeah? And you'll find that that quality, those kind of qualities about being accessible and being available all the time to your team members will improve your connection and bonding time with them and get the job done much, much better. When you're in a position of leadership, or as some people call it, in a boss position, yeah, or if you're leading your team right now, if you have an assignment in a team, you must be able to delegate, correct? Because otherwise, why would your lecturers put you in a team? So in order to delegate, you must be able to communicate and be available and accessible to your team. Everyone has to have the same mentality to continue the connection and be accessible, right? So this is number 2, available and accessible. And then it doesn't matter what is your background. I was made known, and I could see from the name list today that you guys come from very different backgrounds, different localities, or even countries, right? So these rules, it doesn't matter whether you're from Malaysia or you're from Africa or wherever, it doesn't matter. Okay. And trust me, also another thing, once you are able to do good delegation, your life will be much easier. Now that's number 2. Let's continue with number 3. This is an area that I'm very passionate about. It's about developing talent. Now here's a picture of me with 2 of my very junior members. I think they're about like, what, 25 years old? Yeah. And we were in a bullet train from Pudong airport heading to the city center. Yeah, I think we were traveling at about 350 kilometers per hour in this train, very fast. What I'm trying to share with you here is that the focus on learning is a never-ending thing. It's important to achieve results throughout life. If you prioritize this, you can spot at the end of the day, to be good in leading people, you have to be willing to, you have to be able to want to develop other people and not just yourself. Yeah? A lot of the times, what that means is that your time has already passed. You have to want to develop those who will take over your position. A lot of bosses actually don't want that. You notice that? They tend to want to protect their position. And they go to great lengths to ensure that happens. Like stifling, yes, not growing the team. Yeah? That's very negative things. Yeah? Focusing on developing talent is a core value of good leadership. And not focusing on it shows where the boss or the leader is in terms of thinking, right? So learn to let go, learn to grow the younger generation. Yeah. And as for you, when you enter the workforce, look for leaders, look for bosses who want to develop you as an individual. Yeah. So it works both ways. The first few tips that I gave you, right, was more on the how you can develop to be a leader. But this one, you can demand also to be under someone who takes in developing you. Okay? And it's also your duty to develop your own talent. Yeah, don't forget that. Don't rely on others. Take the charge on your own as well. So this is number 3. Continuing on. Okay. Now, this image is meant to just provoke. This is not a real incident. It was acted out. But what I'm trying to share with you here is that not giving regular feedback about others' performance is very negative. Yeah. And I'm not proposing that you kick people or get violent and physical with them, but people who achieve high performance can achieve high performance only if they know the truth about how they are already performing at that point in time, whether they are effective or otherwise. So if you want to lead a team, make sure that you give feedback to them. If they are not doing well, you have to tell them. If they need support, you have to give it to them. Verbal and physical engagement is very, very important. Yeah, not physical. Again, this is only an acted out image to get your attention. Okay, now you as a person, you have to be willing to also give the truthful performance, to explain your performance to others. It is only by being honest. I believe I did a talk a few weeks ago about being honest. Yeah, it has to work both ways for people to improve. Yeah? Feedback has to be both ways. It has to be truthful, it has to be honest in order to improve. Remember that. Okay. Here's a picture of me looking very tired and definitely almost at the brink of depression. This is me during a race. I run ultra marathons. For those of you who don't know, this was me last year during the UTM Eco Ultra, 50 kilometers. This is part of the trail run. I was the last runner, by the way. I just made it within the cutoff time. What I'm trying to share with you here is being aware of emotions can go a long way. People who ignore emotions, whether it's negative or positive, whether it's loss or disappointment or happiness, is making a big mistake because you are reducing your ability to engage. Leaders, for example, whatever position they're in, is not showing poor performance if they show that they have disappointments or they have losses or they're not performing. As you can see in this image, I mean, I share this with my friends greatly. My highs and my lows, yeah. As I travel, doing my sports or even at work, because that's when the human side of you is shown, and people can connect with you if they know that you are actually human also, yeah? And not just putting yourself in that high position and no one can touch you. Yeah? And as if you are put in a leading position, you must be able to connect with people around you too when they're having disappointing days, yeah, or emotional instability. Okay, it is not easy. I can outright tell you that human management is not easy, but it is critical to ensure that engagement between you, yeah, and them is maintained. And as we saw from the previous slides just now, to maintain that engagement is critical. Okay. Throughout my working experience, right, I frequently see people running away whenever emotional things come into play. A lot of people, the majority of people, cannot handle it. Okay. And that is, I think, the difference between outstanding leaders and just normal leaders. Yeah, so try to work on it. You can learn this. You can learn the techniques. Okay. Next. I quite enjoyed this race, by the way, in spite of the way I look in this photograph. I quite enjoyed it. Yeah, it was a good experience. Next one is about managing conflict, which is quite related to the previous slide, because conflict has a lot of emotions in it, right? You cannot run away from conflict. I'm sure right now, in your own teams, in your own group assignments, you must have conflict, right? Because everyone has a different idea of different things. You have to be able to manage it effectively, yeah? Because if you don't, you will block any cooperation and you will not align everybody around one single goal. Great teams, good teams, work because everyone is focused on one single goal. Yeah? The leader sets the goal at the same end. As Covey would say, start work with the end in mind. So you have to learn to be able to manage conflict as you move in your project, in your assignment, or whatever it is that you need to do. Yeah? In fact, if any of you are in a relationship, whether you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or you're in your family, obviously, I'm sure conflict also arises, and the same situation shows you how managing it is so important. So remember that. Don't run away from conflict, manage it. Next is about change. And I'm sure all of you can attest that this year, 2020, is anything but normal. Right. A large part of this year is unprecedented. None of us have ever imagined what we're going through, especially with COVID-19, the changes that we have had to go through, yeah, with all the CMCOs, MCOs, and restrictions that have come over us. But we have actually accommodated, isn't it? Because we know how important it is to do that. So it's the same when you're in groups, in organizations, in teams. If you want to lead the team to greater heights, you must be willing to accommodate change. Because if you don't, your team, your company is in a position to be, the word I love to use is irrelevant. You're there, but you're irrelevant in the context of whatever situation you're in. And you don't want to be irrelevant. If you are irrelevant because you're not moving fast enough to change, you can be removed, you can be fired, you can be deprived of benefits, and a multitude of other things which are very negative to your lifestyle. So adapt to change, be open to change, institute change in whatever it is that you do. Okay. Moving on, not encouraging others to take risks. Here's a picture of me leading a coaching clinic of all the top leaders in the division. Yeah? You'll notice that whenever you have these sessions, right, too many people like to play it safe. Whether you ask them to play a game, to participate in exercise, a lot of them is just play not to lose, that's all. Play it safe. Don't overdo it. Yeah, these are frequent sentences and statements that you hear people make, right? And they are not good, actually. Positive risk is important for progress. And as leaders, you have to encourage people to take positive risk. Now, that's the second time I used the word positive in front of the word risk, because there is this thing called negative risk, and you don't want to go into that too much. It's like playing with the stock market. Eh? There's a balance, but positive risk is definitely good. What do I mean by positive risk? Positive risk is essentially calculated risk. That means thought, be it through calculations or wisdom or experience, have been put into play for you to understand that yes, taking the risk has far more positive benefits than negatives. Positive risk taking. Okay? You, even if you don't think that you're a leader, throughout life, you have to be able to take positive risk to progress. In your assignments, in your engagement with your supervisors or lecturers, do you take risks that you have thought about to show that you can do better, that you can move the goalposts further? Because if you're not, then it shows that your level of being able to progress, or your team's level to progress to the next level, is very much reduced. We need to be a group of community or a generation that encourages people to take positive risks. Okay, I'm down to my last few slides. This one is about motivation. Misunderstanding motivation is very bad. Too many leaders, we miss the opportunity to understand people and what drives them. For example, like, what it means to be challenged, what it means to learn something new, or what it means to make important difference in their lives or other people's lives, or what it means to develop new talents. These are very big words, but they're very important to people when they're working. And to some extent, to you as an individual as well. What is your motivation? What motivated you to come and study whatever it is that you're studying? As leaders, you must be able to engage the people around you, understand what motivates them, and meet their motivation. Because if you don't, then there is a disconnect. Then you would know what it means for them to be motivated. I'll give you an example. Some people like to be pushed. When you're asked to do an assignment, when you're asked to deliver something, some people, they work better when they're challenged, when they're pushed really hard. Oh, I want you to do this. I want you to write more. I want you to research more. Yeah. But some people, they can't be pushed like that. They like to be left alone, and yet they can still achieve the same results. You see, different motivations. Once you understand each individual, then you can meet their motivation. Yeah. So don't misunderstand that. Yeah. Take time to engage, to bond, yeah? And then you can understand this things that go behind the scenes of people. So, if you notice that throughout the beginning, as I was talking just now, I speak a lot about people. And I think you can tell by now that leaders equal people. Leaders are nothing without people. This is an example of my running team. I do lead the PROTON running team. And I believe that even though so many of them can run faster than me, longer than me, I still need to be in a position that can inspire, encourage, and bring out the very best in them so that they will continue to be good in what they're doing. Remember the thing about delegation, the thing about growing talent? Same thing. Yeah? Also, by doing that, yeah, by actually leading the people, you can get trust and for them to take positive risk is definitely possible. Too many times, people manage the activity, not the people. I hope you understand the difference. Yeah? Managing activity is like if you do a Gantt chart. I hope all of you know what Gantt chart is. It's a progress chart, isn't it? You have activities on one side and you have the timeline on the other, right? So you do this A, then you do B, and then you do C, etc., and you put everything on the line, right? A lot of times, people focus on the activities on the left. How to achieve this? How to achieve that? Can, by doing this, give you the best result for this and that? Yeah. Can this solution achieve so and so? People forget who are doing all those activities. And leaders forget that there are actually people behind those activities struggling, having sleepless nights, or hitting the wall in trying to achieve that in the shortest time possible. That is why managing people, leading people is more important than managing the activities. And that is actually required to be good leaders, leading people. So as you, in a nutshell, as you saw, right? The word people is repeated many times throughout, from the first point, yeah? Whether it's about bonding or to about being available or inaccessible to people, about being focused on developing people, giving feedback to people, yeah, understanding emotions of the people around you. Again, people. Conflict, definitely. Who instigates them? People. Driving change in the organization, encouragement to take positive risk, yeah, understanding motivation, and last but not least, focusing on leading people, leading the change in people, rather than looking at activities alone. The future of work, as was presented in Davos over the past few years, is gradually moving from hard work to more on work, creativity, innovation. Yeah? So the requirements to succeed in the workforce of old, like remember the time when people always say that, I don't know, at least in my time anyways, if you're an engineer, you are doing well, you can be guaranteed of a good job. If you're a doctor, even more so, etc., right? But in this new generation of the workforce, that is no longer the case. Being able to lead people, being creative, innovative, yeah, being able to think out of the box, empathy. These are the qualities that will be required for work of the future. And I think if you take into account this that's in front of you right now, I can assure you, you can be where the requirements of the future are. And with that, I'm more than happy to take any questions or comments from the floor as I end my presentation.
All right, thank you for a very wonderful presentation. All right, it's a very, very useful tips for all of us. Okay, so yes, the floor is open now for question. So if you have any question, please feel free to ask Mr. Azlan. Okay.
Yeah. There's quite a number of people here. Something in the chat. I think most of you are still quite young, isn't it?
Yeah, they are first year student.
So probably in your 20s. And actually, I'm glad that all of you have the opportunity to hear this. It may seem trivial to you right now, but as you grow into your course, and especially when you're entering the workforce later on, you will find that a lot of the 10 items I mentioned is extremely relevant. Extremely relevant.
All right, if you have question, feel free to unmute your mic and ask the questions, or maybe you can type the question in the chat.
Yes, please.
Yes, hello, sir.
Hello.
Yes, Abdelhamid is here. My name.
Hello, Abdelhamid.
Yes, hello, sir. First, thank you for the presentation. It was quite enlightful. And sir, like regarding, I have a question. For example, now, like when as a international student, when I work with so many different, basically people from different backgrounds, different mentalities, how can I find the common ground between all of us so we be on the same page? Because usually I've worked in so many assignments and so many even projects outside university. And I found like as being a leader, like when you deal with different people, you always notice like they are all different. They all have different mentality, different aspect, different. So how can I find the common ground between all of us so we can be on the same page and we can proceed at the same pace at the same also?
Okay, thank you, Abdelhamid. A very, very pertinent and relevant question to ask because it's something that all of us experience actually. And even on my part, a lot of you know that Proton and Geely in China is a family, it's a collaboration, right? So I can tell you outright, in the beginning, there was a lot of tension. There was a lot of discomfort in trying to make people work together because you have a clash of culture actually. The issue is when you have people from different backgrounds, it's usually the issue of culture that gets in the way. It's not really the knowledge, or the outlook of the person, but usually it's the culture because all of us behave differently. Let me take the example, let me relate that to the example of spoken language. Now, in this session right now, most probably all of us understand English very easily because we were taught maybe from school. Yeah. So communication is easy. But the minute you have very different people who can't talk the way you do, that is when the disappointments, that is when the issues begin. So relating that to what Abdelhamid was asking just now, you need to find common ground somewhere, and there needs to be a lot of tolerance. Remember, 1, common ground. 2, have tolerance. You can't make people be like you. You cannot force people to be like you, especially if you are the leader of the group, yeah, or even if you are in the team. You cannot, because behind the person is years and years, maybe 20 years of culture, of different upbringing that you cannot undo, you cannot reverse it. So the best way is, 1, as I said, find common ground. Secondly is be tolerant, yeah, with each other and try to understand. That is the only way. Until you do, there will always be friction. Yeah? And I can tell you, back to the spoken language, right? The way I speak maybe is tolerable to most of you. But when you have somebody from a culture whereby their spoken word is more harder, maybe you cannot take it. I don't want to pick on any particular culture, but there are certain cultures in this world whereby their spoken language is very strong, very hard. So if you, as a Malaysian, for example, or from a culture that is more soft-spoken, you will find it very, very intimidating. And when you get that feeling, you get friction. Yeah. So find the common ground, be tolerant. Those are the two best advice I can give you to ensure that your team can work as one. And that is notwithstanding the 10 points that I shared earlier. Eh? Remember the one about being able to bond and engage, yeah? The first point and the second point. Yeah, that all helps. That all helps. Okay, Abdul Hamid?
Okay, clear. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the question. Okay. Others from the floor. I mean, I see Mardia, I see Yomkid, yeah, all the others in there. I'm sure a lot of you will, in the end, when you leave, especially school, you will be leaders in your own right. Yeah, it's something in the new generation that you cannot run away from. So it's good that you start early, like what Dr. Faisal said just now. You are still young. It is great that you take the first step leading to be leaders and not just bosses.
Okay, I don't think they have any questions, or they can't think of anything to ask because they are
tough
still
crowd, as they say in
yeah. But maybe I ask the question lah. All right. Sometimes in an organization, right? There are certain stuff that are accountable and reliable, and normally this stuff, the boss or the leaders like to give tasks to them because it's easy to give tasks to this good stuff, right? And there are some problematic stuff, who are not accountable, uh, don't want to do their things and all, and most of the time, they've been left easy, and the one that's performing that one, the good stuff, often been given more works, all right, until sometimes, this good stuff, becoming demoralized, right, and demotivated because, all the works goes to them, all right, and then the one who are not doing anything, they are not being given things to do because, the boss like feel like it's harder to give them tasks. It's easier to give to the good stuff, right? I mean, in a private institution, it's quite easy because at the end of the day, there's a performance bonus and things like that. All right, so the one that's performing can get extra, so it's kind of fair. But sometimes it's not like that, right? Sometimes, in different setting where everyone will get the same, remuneration or bonus, like in government sector, for example, you do extra or you do less, you get the same thing, right? So how to deal with this? Okay.
I fully understand your perspective, and it is actually quite common. I mean, I go through that all the time. Probably the best way for me to start is to say that there's always two sides of the story. There's always two sides of the coin, depending on how you look at things. From the person perspective, it's actually very easy because if you know you're not performing, you have to change. Remember what I was saying about wanting to change, right? You have to change to be able to get the attention away from the frequent performer to you. You must have that drive. To the leader, it's different. the leader must be able to recognize potential talents and grow them equally and not just focus on one. Yes, there are times we tend to be over-reliant on one person or one group of people because they are always performing. But realize that for the whole team to work, you have to balance things. So like it or not, you need people to make mistakes, learn from it so they can get better. So the gist is you have to give others opportunity, whether you like it or not, but do it in baby steps. You don't immediately try to match the non-performer with the top performer. That is wrong. Yeah. So training is important. Engagement is important for you to lift the non-performer to acceptable levels. Yeah. It's not easy. Yeah. But if all else fails, if for some reason all your effort to raise the person to meet the acceptable level doesn't work, then you have to remove the person. And when I say remove here, it's not to fire the person. You move him somewhere where you know he or she can perform. Because we notice that there are such circumstances whereby this person cannot perform in your organization, but can perform in other organizations. They are not in their element, hence why they cannot perform. The same analogy can be taken into why some students cannot perform in the first 1 year or 2 years. But when they do a transfer to another faculty, which usually means them going to what they want to do, they excel. Same thing. Yeah. So that is the worst case. If the person cannot perform, you must remove them. Okay.
All right, thank you. This is a very, very, very good answer. Okay, others, do you have any other question?
Yeah, sir, I've got one question.
Good.
Sorry, who's this?
Yu Yang.
Hi, Yu Yang. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you. Okay, so I just only got one question. Okay, you said about if they are not that, they didn't perform well, and we try our best to reach them and make it equivalent to the top performer. But then you say that if they still can't, after we try our best, then we can remove them. So you remove means that maybe we can assign the person another task which he or she is familiar with, or just kick you out of the group. Is what do you mean? Because I'm a bit confused for this part.
Yes, it actually depends on the situation. Yeah? There is, I can tell you, in human management, right, there is no one size fits all. I mean, you can learn about all these theories, go all the training, but in reality, there is no one size that fits all. So coming back to your question is, it can go either way. Yeah, you can, in the most minimal sense of the word, reassign them to a different task. You are right. You are absolutely right. Get them to do what you think they will be good in doing that. Yeah. But sometimes, for whatever reason, whatever job you give this person, he can't seem to do anything. Maybe it's his attitude problem or personal problems or whatever. That is when you have to take the path of actually removing them away from your organization to somewhere that you feel will fit them. How do you know that? Engagement, discussion. Find out what will interest them so that they can continue in their career. That's the best way. Yeah. It may not be the most beneficial to one person, meaning the incumbent, but that is as fair as it gets. There is no absolute fairness. Yeah? You will notice that being leaders or being bosses, in whatever capacity, there is no absolute fairness. On my part, many times I have to toe the hard line make hard decisions which will not make people happy, but I have to make them. That's the burden of being a leader. That's the responsibility that you have to carry to achieve certain targets. Okay? All the tips that I have given you is trying to balance things out in a very professional, proper way. But there is another side of things, which I have not shared with you, that is the hard way. Sometimes you have to go in that. So a bit of a long answer to you, Yu Yang, but I hope you understand there is no one-size-fits-all solution. And I hope that I have been able to somewhat answer your concern.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. You helped me a lot. Thanks. It's very helpful.
Thank you. Yes. Quite heavy stuff when you think about it, isn't it? When you talk about people, it is never easy. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes, true that, because people are creature of emotions, sometimes not logical. Okay, any more question?
I'm sure they do, actually. I'm sure there is no way that you go through your studies or life in general that you don't encounter these issues, right? There is, I remember I heard this talk that the title was "Life Would Be Easy If It Wasn't for Other People." Unfortunately, that's an unattainable suggestion.
Excuse me, sir.
Hi.
Yeah.
Abdulhamid, right?
Abdulhamid again, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just have last question, please. For example, for a leader, is it fair and equal to have expectations towards certain members, or is it like you're gonna feel like it might affect them in a negative way? Basically, they might put pressure on them. Like if you will expect something very good from someone, they will keep thinking like, what if I failed? What if? So from your perspective, sir, do you feel like it's fair to put expectations, or is it better to keep it all neutral till the end of the project?
Okay, thank you for the excellent question. If you want to build, lead, create a high-performing culture, a high-performing organization, a high-performing team, be it a team of 2, 3, or 1,000 people, the answer is yes. You have to be able to put pressure, a little bit of pressure on people. You have to be able to have expectations and people, but they have to realize that you are having the expectation. You see, that's the thing. The problem is if you don't engage people or the person, and yet you have expectations of them, high expectations, then it is not fair. Engage or your discussion, or even what I call corridor talks, always helps in these situations. Because once people know that you are expecting, an A+ of them, then they will people run. Yeah, very few people will just withdraw. Because humans, from my experience, humans by nature, they always appreciate being able to accomplish something. If I'm sure most of you have heard of the Maslow triangle, right? Needs, right? It's as simple as that. Emotionally, humans by nature, they like to be challenged. People like to be challenged. And I think I showed it in one of my slides just now, how motivation can play a very important role to get people together. achieve the highest level possible. So Abdul Halim, don't be scared to give feedback that will lead to higher expectation to the people around you. I think you will be surprised. People are willing to rise to the occasion and meet, if not exceed, your expectations. Give them a chance.
All right, sir. Thank you. I will reflect on my skills also. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And for those of you who haven't heard of Maslow, maybe you can just Google Maslow hierarchy of needs. It's very interesting. Okay. Yeah, it's almost 1 hour. Maybe we can open for one last question, if any.
Yeah. One final question, if any. I don't think I'll be seeing you guys anymore after this, at least not in the near term. I think all of you are finished semester, Dr. Faisal?
I think a couple more weeks and then finish.
Yeah. All right, yeah.
Okay, I guess no more question. Thank you very much. All right, thanks, Mr. Azlan, for the sharing, again, for the wisdom, and thank you everyone for attending or for joining us. All right, thanks.
Right. Thank you again. Thank you, Dr. Faisal and the team for organizing. Thank you everyone for having me. All the best in your studies and future endeavor. I'm sure you'll do fine. Yeah, stay safe.
All right. Thank you. All the best to all of you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.